Hey, 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 everybody. It is Thursday. It is sunny, and we know what that means. It is episode 105 of the Real Deal Pod with Allister and Geoff. It is I, Allister Carrington, your trusted realtor, along with our trusted mortgage broker, our trusted mortgage guru, Geoff Lee. Geoff, buddy, how are you doing? How was your long weekend?
Yeah, you know what? I was up in Merritt. Anyone that doesn't know where Merritt is, that's about, where is that? That's about an hour and a half, 2 hours from Chilliwack, just
It's
outside
the last
of
stop
Cam.
before Kelowna or Kamloops.
Yeah, or the last stop before Kamloops, depending on which way that you're traveling.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was the weather wasn't great. The air quality was poor. The company was fantastic.
That's
So,
awesome. But wait, what
so
took
it
you
was,
out there?
you know what? A whole bunch of our friends, we went camping out there. A friend of ours, owns or his, her father used to own, that whole, area where they used to have the Merritt Mountain Music Festival.
Okay, yeah.
So Claude, he actually used to own that land out there and was the originator founder of the Merritt Mountain Music Festival.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, so we just hung out with him and on that property, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool. The story is this gentleman's 80 years old and he's 40, right?
That's
Just
awesome.
he's just got a lot of energy and just a all around good guy. And like I said, we just had great people, and it was a good long weekend for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, I usually stop in Merritt for gas on the way up to Kelowna. That's the only reason that I usually stop in Merritt. But I haven't been there for quite some time. I think it's been about 3 years now or so, 4 years. Have they done more development up there yet? Did you notice?
Yeah, you know what? Merritt is one of those towns where on the outside, when you're driving by it, it looks like it's quite, modernized, but you get deep into the town and it's quite sleepy, right?
Yeah.
So, we went to a cafe. I'm gonna butcher the name. I think it was called like Kukulame Cafe, but it had some awesome Bannock bakery or Bannock goodies in there, and
Oh,
oh, so it was so good. But I find Merritt is a great place to have short visits. I don't, no offense to anyone that lives in Merritt. I just don't know if it's a place that I could be there full time. But you know what? You have again, you have good community, good people. You can live in a shoebox in Tuktoyaktuk. So
it's
and
true.
be
But they've
okay.
been saying that Merritt might be one of those places that next becomes developed because, we got to start, creating cheaper homes and all of that sort of stuff. So Merritt has been, quietly discussed. And that's why I wanted to ask you if they've done any development up there, because I'm the same as you. I couldn't see myself living in Merritt, but I know, when necessity makes you, right? That's how these things get developed, right? So
Well, and I think it depends on who you speak with. If you were to speak with Claude up there, he would tell you that's to your point is the next big thing. Like
sure.
his vision as far as the property that he used to own is condos, townhouses, residential homes. Like he has a vision, and they have the land to do it, right?
Yeah.
So you know what? Who knows? Let's see what this place looks like in 15 years. It could be, it could be that next Chilliwack, right?
That
Remember, everybody used to bag on Chilliwack. It's the stinky part of the valley, but
yeah.
now it seems like to be the heart of the valley kind of idea, right?
No,
So
100%. When I first started in real estate, people would laugh at me because I was driving to Chilliwack to go and meet a client or to go do business out there. And they're like, why wouldn't you just refer that out? Why are you going out to Chilliwack? Then COVID happened. And those
yeah,
same people that were laughing at me for going out to Chilliwack were all coming out to Chilliwack and realizing that that was becoming the new place to be. It wasn't Abbotsford. It wasn't Mission. Chilliwack was growing into, like you just said, the heart of the valley. So crazy. It'll be interesting to see what happens.
And as we talk about this, I just kind of think, but yeah, maybe there is going to be, maybe Merritt is the next big thing because, I don't even remember actually entering Chilliwack. We used to have a store in Cottonwood Mall back in the day, and that's as deep as we would go in it. But you take a look at Chilliwack now with 1881 district out there. You take a look at all the development that's happening throughout all that native lease land that's out there. You take a look at even the pockets of Chilliwack that are developing out there are very, very modern, very, very well developed. And you know what? Back to Merritt. Merritt's got all that capability, right? But right now, Merritt is developing pockets. And again, I didn't really venture too deep into Merritt, but it has just like, Chilliwack and Abbotsford and, even up in the interior, Prince George, it has that old town that's been there forever.
Yeah.
I actually even saw a Fields sign in there. But like anything, it's what happens around it. Like everybody has an old part of town. It's just a matter of how it's developed. So yeah, maybe like I said, in 10, 15 years, maybe that Merritt's going to be the new Chilliwack. Who knows?
Yeah.
It is a central hub, right? It is a hub to Kamloops. It is a hub to the Okanagan. It's a hub to Vancouver. So it is a central hub. But right now it's just to your points where people will get their gas, right? So
yeah, exactly. Awesome, man. Awesome. My weekend, I just spent it with family. I tried to enjoy it as much work-free as I possibly could. I did squish in a couple of showings, but spent it most with family. So that was nice. That was nice. Well, man, let's get into it because I know we got a lot to go through today.
But before we start, August 6th, just so people know, August 6th, I just want to do a big shout out to my partner, Christina Joe. Happy birthday, honey.
Oh, Christina Joe, happy birthday. That is amazing.
Honey. Yes. Happy birthday, honey.
Well, I can't call her honey. That's weird. Happy birthday. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, and I also wanted to say before we get into business, because these wildfires are crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, they've hit Metro Vancouver. Everybody in Anmore, I hope you're safe right now. Belcara has been going through it. So I hope everybody out in Metro and Coquitlam is safe. Everybody, please do your best to stay inside. I have not been heeding that type of word. I've been going outside on walks and stuff like that, and at some points can feel myself feeling it. So everybody just everybody stay safe, and we're all praying for you out there.
Yeah, and every time I hear that you're going for a walk, I'm just thinking, Allister, you're not like 65 years old. Like, what do you mean you're going for a walk?
It's good on the bones, dude. My bones are so busted up from football that the joints are so messed up from football that's what I've been resorted to. I got to walk. I can't run anymore.
I tease you, but the reality of it is just get out. Just get up. Yeah, get out and walk. Just get your body moving, right?
Do something. That's the biggest thing, is do something. All right, man. Well, let's kick it. And let's kick it off, as always, with the hottest segment in podcast, and that is... Did you know? That's right, baby. Did you know? So, Geoff, did you know that the market's June rally did not survive the month of July?
So we haven't hit the bottom.
We have not hit the bottom yet, Geoff. Not yet. Both Greater Vancouver and the Fraser Valley posted real gains, actually, as we said, in June. And by the end of July, almost all of it was gone. So, here's what happened. In Metro Vancouver, sales jumped about 10% in June, kicking off, like we said, what looked like the potential start of summer momentum. Then July sales fell nearly 10% from a year ago, essentially erasing that gain in 1 month. The region's own chief economist called it exactly what it was: one step forward, one step back.
I think it's, sorry to cut you off, that it's almost, isn't that like almost 3 steps back?
About that, yeah. He's trying to stay positive, Geoff. He's trying to stay positive. And the
Sorry,
same,
I just go back to and again I'm trying to remember what the lift was in June. I think it was like either 3% or 0.3%. It was something not well, hey, something that was
it
what it
was
was.
it was a bright spot, Jeff. It was a bright spot we had. And then poof.
But 10% over the year before for July. Like that's again from where it was from where that last July was and that July before that and the one before that. So
Exactly. We
yeah.
crashed and burned, Jeff. We can't say we crashed and burned. And the like I was just going to say, the same story played out in the Fraser Valley, where the Fraser Valley sales dropped 9% from last July and 5% from June alone. So we were
Mhm.
down 5% from last month and 9% year over year. So we crashed and burned. And so what actually pulled it back? Again, one segment more than any other, and that was our condos. In Metro Vancouver, condo sales fell nearly 18% from a year ago. The single biggest drop on the whole region's number. It's the softest corner of the market, as we keep saying, and it's staying that way. And here's the part that tells you who's actually in the driver's seat right now. In the Fraser Valley, the board's chair put it plainly, buyer urgency has been missing from this market for a while now. With plenty to choose from and little competition, buyers simply don't feel like they have to rush, and they know they can come back next month to the same wide open selection.
Mhm.
And that's just what we've been seeing. Things don't move, buyers don't feel that need, that pressure to take that next step forward. And that shows up directly in the prices. Across Metro Vancouver, a typical home now sits around 1.088 million, which is down 1% from June and 6% from a year ago. So that's the thing we've said, and we've spoke about this like consistently, is that the prices aren't really dropping month to month, but what we're seeing, where we're seeing it, is the overall versus year over year. So yes, 1% drop doesn't feel like they moved a lot, but when you look at percent year over year, that starts becoming quite a bit of money, right? Um, in the Fraser Valley, the typical home right now is 877,000, right? So, and keep in mind, typical home, what that means is it's taking in the average of the single family home, the condo, and the townhouse, averaging that. And that's how we get our typical home number, and that number, by the way, is down 1% from June, just like in Metro Vancouver, but it's down 7% from last year, right? So it's the same story, and inventory is continuing to back that up. In the Fraser Valley, listings are still running 32% above the normal seasonal level. 32%, Jeff. And in Metro Vancouver, it sits almost 27% above normal levels. So Vancouver, the biggest difference is where the sales to listing ratio sits at. And in Metro Vancouver, it's 13%, and in the Valley, it's 11. So in the Valley, it's a buyer's market. In Metro Vancouver, it's a buyers to steady market, but still, like we've said, the majority of that is being suppressed by condos. So the takeaway really from July is, don't read one strong month like June as proof that the market is turned, but don't read one soft month like July as proof that it's falling apart either. What we're watching again is a market that's moving sideways with a slight downward lean 1 month at a time. And for buyers, that means the same message every month that we've had, and that is, you have time and you have choice, but to still make your move when it is affordable to you, because we don't know when things are going to turn around. For sellers, it means the same thing. It means pricing has to reflect today's market. It can't be aspirational. Your property has to be in a presentation sense as to move as well. So you can't just take any old property that you wanted to put on the market, not put any money into it and expect that it's going to sell for an aspirational price. It has to be priced properly, and it has to be showroom ready, basically turnkey. If it's not turnkey, it's not moving. Um,
Yeah.
and if you're selling a condo, everything's out the window. I will tell you right now, if you're selling a condo, your market value is what that offer is in front of you. That's essentially what your market value is right now. Tough thing to say, and it's something that we haven't heard in ever when it came to condos, but that's where it sits. So that's the did you know, and now you do. But Geoff, before we get any further, I want to ask you a couple things, because in reading through a whole lot of reports and stuff like that, one of the things that we've spoken about is we're in a rate environment that's, one of the best rate environments that we've ever seen. But one of the prevailing things throughout these reports is that the failing is that the falling mortgage rate relief has stalled now. That means nothing to anybody anymore. And they're saying that and a lot of it is saying that the US and Iran conflict has just rattled global investors, and it's pushed the bond yields higher, and they've stayed elevated even as tensions have been eased. So in plain language, the thing that was making borrowing cheaper isn't helping anymore, and the buyers, first-time buyers especially, don't seem to really care about the rates being in one of the lowest rate environments that we've seen. Is that true? Do you see that?
Well, I find that we're just not coming up with a lot of new excuses why people are timid to move forward with purchases. I think that even 12 to 16 months ago was all about I'm going to wait for the next Bank of Canada meeting, right?
Sure.
And at that time, we were educating people in is like, hey, if you're thinking about doing a fix, don't worry about the Bank of Canada meeting,
Right.
right? And we just don't hear that anymore. We don't hear the tariff as far as why I'm not buying anymore. I rarely even hear the U.S.-Iran conflict as far as why we're not buying, or the possibilities of the rates rising due to gas prices and the cost of goods. I just think that Canadians are in a mindset right now that they just are not buying,
Yeah.
right? And they're I don't know. I was at a BNI meeting today, and somebody said something that was really um, kind of made sense. He was a kinesiologist, and he says, "Hey, when you're born, your body moves exactly on how it should. Like, you take a look at a little kid, they bend down, they have lots of mobility. You can turn them into a pretzel. Like they have all the mobility. That's how your body isn't necessarily designed to move, but there's no limitation in it. The
Mhm.
limitation in your bodies comes from the movement that you do as you get older and older and older in the sports that you play and the injuries that you happen. So when you take a look at why a body is not functioning well, that really is year after year after year of training your body as far as what to do and how to think.
Right.
And I bring it back to today's buyer. Like we're almost have trained ourselves over this last 3 years as far as why not to buy. And we can throw all the pieces in there as far as the last 3 years, as far as why people haven't been buying. But you do that long enough, like motion in a body, your brain just starts to think that way, right?
Right.
And it's almost like we need to kind of rewire the way that we're thinking in this market, because again, folks, um, you're crazy not to jump into this market. And people might say to me, Geoff, you're crazy telling people they're crazy not to jump in this market. Look at the market the last 3 years. But I just go back to people that I really respect and make a shit ton of money. Warren Buffett, be
Mhm.
fearful when people are greedy, be greedy when people are fearful.
Yeah.
Everybody is fearful right now,
Yeah.
right? I take a look at the history of real estate and what a home was 10 years ago to what it is even in today's market and the return on that investment. I take a look at even a 25-year history of home ownership, right? I take a look on what we've always said, like take a look where your net worth falls when you're 60 or in your golden years. It is coming from the homes that you're buying and selling. And now is such a great opportunity for people to get into the market and really start to build their future net worth. But for whatever reason, well, there's lots of reasons why our brains, or the majority of Canadians' brains, have been rewired as far as let's just live in this fear, right?
Yeah.
Let's just find another excuse as far as why it's not a wise time to buy the market to purchase.
Could it be job insecurity is weighing on buyers' willingness to take debts or take on debts? It's like separate from a rate issue or anything like that. Because I don't even think that if borrowing gets cheaper, people are going to buy. I don't believe that. Like, because I always remember hearing, oh yeah, if the rate's 2%, you've got a good rate, right? I remember hearing that back in the day, and I know you're smiling because you used to hear that too, right? But like to me, I don't think we're going to get back to the 2% rates anytime too soon. I think a 3% rate is fine, right? And so I just believe I believe that like if job insecurity is really what the issue is, then we're now having two distinctly different conversations, right? Because if it's a job security problem, then only time and economic data is going to fix that. Like, how is the market going to fix somebody's, like, how is a market getting cheaper going to get somebody that's facing job insecurity problems, going to make them buy? I don't think that's what it is. I don't think that a falling market will help job insecurity. So if the issue is job insecurity, then that's going to have to get fixed first before the real estate market gets fixed.
Yeah, I haven't really heard the job insecurity as far as why people are holding back. I haven't really been hearing that at all. And I also want to just comment on a 3% rate. A 3% rate, folks, is not realistic either, right? Like
Right.
a 2% interest rate is definitely not realistic. Like if you're getting and we can get like a high 3 to a mid 4, that's the new rate range, and that's where rates are going to be,
And
right?
yeah, so sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you just said something right key there. That's that's where they're going to be. So now we're going to have to also start retraining, like you said, people's brains to understand that high 3, low 4 is the new 2, 3, let's say. You know what I'm saying? Is that what we're going to have to do now, is retrain everybody's brain out from the low up to now it being a little bit higher?
Yeah, I think we're already there, to be honest, because again, we're not hearing the excuse
Yeah.
as far as why people are buying it. Like the rate thing is not the speed bump anymore,
Yeah.
right? This job insecurity, I don't think that's the speed bump. Unemployment, I don't know our nation's numbers, but that's always kind of has fluctuated up and down. But I don't really even hear that as the speed bump. I just really think the speed bump is, I don't even know what it is. I just think again back to how your body begins to move and how your brain begins to think over a long period of time of believing whatever that is, or getting it, or it's getting fed all that negativity as far as why people shouldn't be in real estate, and interest rates and inflation and markets. And again, we were talking about a whole bunch of foreclosures because the renewals were coming in, and people's interest rates were going to go from 2% to 4%, and there's going to be a huge influx of foreclosures. Like I just heard a statistic is that, hey, foreclosures have been up, but I think the stat is 0.26%
Yeah.
Canada-wide, right?
Right.
And like, again, Canadians pay their mortgages. Like if you have a foreclosure rate, and don't quote me, Google fact this, a 0.26%, that is marginal,
Yeah.
right? But you will also hear, well, it's up 27% over the year before. Well, it was at point like
0.16.
17 or
Yeah.
something like that. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
like come on, like, is that, but you get enough of that stuff,
Yeah.
Allister. It's like eating a bag of chips every
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
right? Like at the end of 3 years, you're not going to be very healthy,
Yeah.
right?
No,
If that's
sure.
all you're eating.
Mhm.
And again, the news that we've been getting about real estate for the last 3 years has been like eating a bag of cheeses. And I love cheeses, but you eat a bag of cheeses for 365 days a year, you times that by 3, like that's almost 1,200 days in a row.
Oh.
You're not going to be, your mindset and your body and your health is not going to be very good, right? So I still go back to, what I say, it's we've been fed junk food for the last 3 years as
Yeah.
far as why you should not be buying in today's real estate as a whole. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of validity there, but there's a lot of bullshit in there as well.
Mhm.
And I go back, we have to start now getting rid of the cheesies, going out for a walk,
Yeah.
right? Let's get rid of the cheesies and basically eat some broccoli or cauliflower, whatever it is. We got to start retraining our brains as far as finding reasons as far as not to buy, as far as now finding the reasons to buy.
Yeah.
And again, there's a lot of them in my opinion, right? But
Well,
again, everybody has an opinion, and I've said this a billion times in today's 2000
you went mute.
in 2026.
Yeah.
2026, you can have any opinion on in the world, and you're going to find someone that's going to agree with you,
Yeah.
including ours,
Yeah.
right? So again, I think this is almost what I would say a you problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not a me problem, it's a you problem. Why? And when I say you, I use that as a
I
generalization. Like
know. Yeah. Yeah.
what is stopping you
Yeah.
from moving forward,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And again, sometimes we have to just look in the mirror and ask ourselves that question, because there's a lot of reasons why you should be moving forward in this market. And we've talked about this before, Alistair. It's not that people can't afford it. It's not that people are not qualifying. It's not that the market isn't where it needs to be. It's not that rates are not where they need to be.
Mhm.
But what is holding us back? Right? We always say, like, what is your net worth when you're 40 versus 60, if you own a home and if you don't own a home. If you take a look at people that are set to retire, some people haven't saved a penny their entire life, but they own a home and that's their only saving grace,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So again, like, what is the speed bump for people?
I don't know, man, because like the other excuse that people have is, oh, I want it to be cheaper. Well, we are now cheaper than COVID. We are pre-COVID levels in terms of not affordability. I mean in pricing, right? Like the condos right now. I was talking to a colleague of mine, and they were selling a condo in Chilliwack, and they repriced it. They had to go down to 290, right? And it got sold, right?
Yeah.
Well, that shows, and what he was saying was, now that might seem in one of the pockets of Chilliwack, that 290 is the new price point for a condo out there. Well,
Yeah.
just where else were you going to buy a condo for 290,000 pre 2021? or during 2021. Sorry, 2022.
Chilliwack.
No, that's what I mean. Even in Chilliwack, you couldn't get it. They hit the four. They went from
Yeah,
290 to
Barrett.
4. Right. So that's where I'm saying, like, it's the like people are just carrying or they're carrying old excuses now, and I just don't know what has to be done, and that's why I wanted to bring it to you, because it's just very interesting. And you made, before we move on, you made one point too earlier where you're saying people might think you're crazy for encouraging people to buy right now. Well, I go back to what somebody said to me a long time ago in a conversation that a group of us were having. How could you encourage somebody to buy in COVID, knowing people were spending outrageous amounts of money that they shouldn't have been spending, that was putting themselves in financial peril because they were putting themselves against a wall just to buy a property, right? Thinking, oh, well, everybody's buying one. That's the best time to buy is right now. No, the best time to buy was actually when it got slower and when it got slower and the prices came down and the interest rates were high, right? That was actually a better time because your cost of ownership was cheaper. And it's the same as now. The cost of ownership is cheaper. So it is the better time to buy than when everybody was getting into fist fights because it was 30 deals in, right? Trying to get their offer accepted. So it's just a crazy.
And if you even roll back that onion layer even more, the down payments that people had to come up with in those years
In
versus
COVID.
the down payment you have to come up with now, right?
Exactly.
And that's where people were getting, but they figured it out, Allister.
Yeah.
They were purchasing things for $100,000 to $200,000 higher, coming up with the down payment to do it.
Yeah.
They were figuring it out.
Yeah.
Now that same property, let's take a look at that $290,000 condo. That's about a $15,000 down payment.
Yeah.
How much was that condo in the peak of COVID?
$440 with a $35,000 down payment.
Right. So, right there is reason enough to purchase, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is it's just
it's crazy.
It's the rewiring of the brain. And I just go back to my analogy because I just love analogies so much. It's like we've been eating a bag of cheesies for the last 3 years. You eat a bag of cheesies, or who's that guy actually that did that documentary about eating McDonald's every day for a period of time?
Yeah.
I think he did it for a year, or it was for a good chunk of time. He came out with heart disease. He came out with gout. I'm kind of making some, but he came out really, really unhealthy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to me, this is what we've been doing. We've been feeding our brains all this junk food, and as a result, this is kind of where our mental state is at. And again, how do you shake that? It's like anything. It's kind of hitting that rock bottom, realizing that this is not where you want to be. And then basically that one person in front of you starts to do things different. And guess what? Now I'm going to start doing things different.
Right.
And guess what that person behind me is going to do? They're going to start doing things different.
Yeah.
So who's going to lead this domino into turning our down market into an up market? It's going to start somewhere, but again, where is that going to be?
Exactly.
Has paused on us here. He's frozen.
It froze on
his
me too.
Camera, so that was the reason of the delay.
It froze on me too. No worries. Well, that's all I got for the Did You Know, my man. That's the Did You Know, Now You Do. Jeff, what do you got for us today?
That was a good Did You Know. We're 35 minutes into this thing. So,
right? What do you got for us?
Well, you know what? I love it when we kind of go off on conversations like this. I think there's a lot of value and a lot of good conversation in that. What I was going to talk about is how rental income from a basement suite can qualify you for a bigger mortgage. So again, I was working on a file here this week. Again, we always talk about it. What is the income? What are your debts? What's your down payment? What do you qualify for? And in this particular case, there was a basement suite that was was being utilized and increase the purchase power. Now, a lot of times, folks, remember, if you are purchasing something with a basement suite or a carriage house within it, or you're refinancing, and if you have a basement suite or a carriage house within it, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to qualify for hundreds of thousands of dollars more. It's just going to bump up your purchase power, to or your buying or your borrowing power more so than if it didn't have a suite. So I wanted to talk I wanted to talk about that, because again, the conversations that we have sometimes is like, well, it's got a suite, we should be able to do it, no problem. And it's like, you know what? If you do have a rental income, in the purchase in the property that you want to buy or the property that you own, yes, it can bump up your borrowing power. But I wanted to talk about that a little bit more in depth. Again, nothing too heavy, because I always say if you can just take one or two things out of these pods that we have, it's going to just make you that much stronger for what you want to do.
Yeah, I think it's important. This is a big one. And again, I'm dealing with clients all the time. And this is a lot of the times one of the ways they afford
Yeah.
The property. So I think this is a
Well,
important subject to touch on.
and it can turn a no into a yes,
Yeah.
right? So the short answer is, can rental income help your borrowing power? The simple answer is yes. If you have rental income in the property that you want to buy or the property that you want to own, it can increase your borrowing power. It can basically help offset monthly costs, because again, you have that rental income coming in, and well, actually, a lot of times that makes home ownership more affordable, especially when we were talking about townhouses and strata fees versus, say, a detached home with a rental component in it. Sometimes when you do the math and you run the numbers on it, it's actually cheaper to own that home. That purchase price is more, right? But because you have a rental offset in it, your overall cost of borrowing is less, versus if you have a townhouse, which their purchase price is less, but you have the strata fee, again, can push that cost of borrowing higher. Or sometimes it's the same, right? Or sometimes it's a little bit less or a little bit more. But at the end of the day, where I'm going with this is purchasing something that has a rental component to it can definitely be a big bonus.
Yeah. Now, quick question. I guess I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but does everybody recognize rental income when doing mortgages? I've been told that not everybody recognizes rental income when doing the application.
Well, again, this is a plug for working with a broker, because every lender isn't necessarily built the same. There are lenders out there that want that rental component to be legal versus illegal, or they like to use the word authorized versus unauthorized. There are some lenders out there that want to see that rental income being reported on the T1 general, right?
Right.
There are some lenders out there that they're not as concerned if it's an unauthorized or illegal suite versus an authorized. And there are some lenders out there that don't really care if it's on the T1 general or not. So again, when you work with a broker that has the ability to work with multiple lenders versus mobile mortgage specialists, and again, I'll just throw RBC out there because they're not in the broker channel, or a CIBC, you're really going against that lender's policy. And if that lender's policy is that, hey, that rental income, say, for example, if you're refinancing, has to be reported on your T1 general, and you haven't reported your rental income for whatever reason, now all of a sudden that lender isn't going to recognize it, right? And the same, if it's an illegal suite, they're not going to recognize it. Whereas again, other lenders will. The other important thing that I want to actually talk about too, Allister, is that room and board with a traditional lender, a bank, a credit union, a monoline lender, they don't recognize room and board income, right?
Okay.
Other lenders like subprime lenders, and we talk about B lenders, they will actually recognize room and board income. So again, a lot of times when there is a rental income, depending on how it is, what it is, there are some lenders that are going to recognize it and some lenders are not. And then again, that's where you can turn a no into a yes at times. So, but when we're talking about suites, it's really important, be it authorized or unauthorized. I don't like the word legal or illegal. It just sounds a little bit so ghetto, right? So there's authorized or unauthorized. Remember, suite income to be recognized, be it authorized or unauthorized, or air quote, legal or illegal, they have to have their own separate entrance.
Yeah.
They have to have their own kitchen. They have to have their own bathroom. They have to have their own bedroom. It's pretty much an independent living space from the rest of the home.
Yeah.
And again, what is the difference between an independent living space that has its own entrance, its own kitchen, its own bathroom, its own bedroom versus room and board?
There's no
everything's shared.
Yeah, everything's shared. That's what I mean. There's no separate entrance. There's no this. There's no that. Yeah. I was just taking a sip of my coffee. I do have.
I know. I caught you. I caught you sipping.
Question for you, Geoff. When it comes to a tenant, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when people are, of course, going to buy a property, sometimes they have a fixed. One of the tenants has a fixed lease, so they have to stay there. Let's say for another 6 months, whatever. Is there a benefit for that new buyer to take on that tenant, so they have that established rent already there, as opposed to taking on a property that doesn't have a tenant and you're telling your broker, we're going to be finding a tenant and getting that income, right? One has established income already there, one has hopeful coming.
And again, depending on the lender, like say if there's an existing tenant in there, and if that existing tenant is going to stay there, the lender may want to see the lease agreement, right?
Okay.
Say for example, if there is no tenant there and there is going to be a tenant there, then there's lenders that are going to want what they call a market rent letter, right? And that's an appraiser's opinion as far as what rental income you could get in that space. So either or pretty much are the same in the lender's eyes. Again, if there's an existing tenant there and they want and they're getting rental income of $3,000, they just may want to see a current lease agreement from that tenant. And even if say the tenant is there and maybe there's not a lease agreement in place, right? That happens a lot. Or there's nobody in there at all, but it's going to be tenanted. That's when the lender is going to request a market rent letter, which is an appraiser's opinion of what that fair market rent is. Now, again, if you're going to be refinancing your property and possibly pulling the equity out for whatever reason, again, a lender will want to see a lease agreement and possibly 3 months of rental deposits, or a lender may just want a market rent letter. And again, there are some lenders that want that lease agreement and 3 months rent. There are some lenders say, well, hey, if you don't have that, we'll take a market rent letter. And again, another plug for why working with a broker that has relationships with multiple lenders is better than working with your CIBC or RBC mobile specialist. And again, sorry, CIBC, sorry, RBC. So the other part is how much of that rental income can be used. And again, I call this the good, the better, and the best. So lenders will either take a look and add back a percentage of that income. There's other lenders that will use an offset, which is better. And then there's lenders that will use what we call a rental calculator, which is the best, right? So again, depending on the lender, another plug for a broker, for using brokers, there are some lenders, and if you only have one lender to choose from, and they use an add back, you may not be able to push that borrowing power to where you need to be, versus another lender with the exact same details, the exact same income, the exact same file. They can use an offset, and then all of a sudden that borrowing power is going to be. As well as there's other lenders that will use what they call a debt service calculator. And again, if an add back isn't getting you there and an offset isn't getting you there, then the DCR calculators may get you there. But again, depending on the lender, Allister, and if you are working with somebody that only has access to one financial institution, again, that no is going to remain a no. Whereas if you have other lenders in your toolbox that may look at that rental income a little bit differently, may be able to turn that no into a yes.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. Everybody loves to work in examples.
Yep.
So a buyer comes in, income qualifies for approximately $725,000 based on his income, right? The home includes a basement suite, and say it's about $2,000 a month for rent. And again, actually, let's not use that as an example. It's a little bit convoluted. Where I want to kind of go through there is what we've talked about, is with the mistakes, right? And the mistakes is just going to be summarizing with what we just said, is that assuming every lender has the same rules. They don't. Every lender has maybe similar rules. They may have some of the same rules, but there are a lot of lenders that will look at rental income in a much different way than another lender, right?
Yeah.
The other part that a mistake can be made is like, I'm going to rent this space out for $5,000. Okay, there has to be some verifiable evidence that your rental space is going to be able to be rented out for what you think it's going to be rented out for. And that, again, we've talked about, is going to come in what we call with a market rent letter, an appraiser's opinion of rental income based on fair market value. Or it's going to come in with a lease agreement with confirmation of rental deposits, or it's going to come in with what we on your T1 generals, right? So it's got to be verified in one of those three ways. Also understanding the property condition. Property condition is important because, again, if it's unrentable, even though that it has its own bathroom, it has its own bedroom, it has its own entrance, but if the condition of that rental suite isn't where it needs to be, lenders are also not going to recognize it, right? So there's a lot of common mistakes where people will think, well, hey, I have a rental income, so I'm automatically going to get pushed for more borrowing power, which is true. But again, we have to understand, and I'll throw this one back in there. Room and board, again, is not recognized by conventional lenders. Every lender doesn't recognize rental income the same. Your rental income that you're stating has to be verified in some way, shape, or form. They're just not going to take your word for it. And the condition of the property is very, very important. And again, I just go back to when we're working with, or when you're working, or if you have a client, or you're in a situation when you are borrowing money, this is one of the advantages of using a mortgage broker, because again, mortgage brokers, folks, they have access to every lender out there, with the exception of a handful: CIBC, RBC. I think that's really, like, there's not many that brokers don't have access to now, right? I think those are the two main ones. And again, RBC and CIBC may look at rental income much different than what a Scotia will look at, what a TD will look at it, what a Coast Capital will look at, what a First National will look at. So again, if you're working with a lender, or with somebody that only has one lender to choose from, again, that could basically just be that speed bump that you're dealing with, whereas another lender will be totally fine with it, right?
Yeah.
And that's really where I want to kind of leave it, is that if you are basically in the situation where you're purchasing something that has rental income, that can increase your borrowing power. If you are in a situation where you're in a refinance and you have rental, you have a basement suite within the property, that can increase your borrowing power. But again, it's not going to increase it six digits, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars or even $100,000. But it is going to increase it. But there's also certain rules and dynamics behind it. And again, if the lender or if the individual or your lending partner that you're working with doesn't have access, or, again, to be honest, doesn't have the knowledge as far as what other lenders look at or recognize, you're really doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. And that's this I always feel is an important topic um, to talk about, especially for our listeners to be able to hear, because especially here in British Columbia, majority of single family homes that are purchased are always purchased with the intent to rent out the basement suite because they need to utilize that money. Not so much a lot of times to get approved, because like you said, it can change that no to that to a yes, but
Yeah.
it very rarely is it going to be the determining factor between a no and a yes. But what it does do is it definitely allows the buyers to have that secondary income in order to live their life comfortably. So it's important for them to understand, you know, what it takes to with rent or with a rental suite, but also being a landlord is also a different beast. So when you're deciding to buy that single family home and you are going to rent out that basement suite, it is super important that you do have a discussion with your realtor about what is the next steps are in terms of becoming a landlord. Your real estate agent can help you with that. Don't let them tell you that there's two different licenses, so they can't. There is two different licenses. One of them is a property management license, and that just means that they can facilitate the money. Um, we as realtors can still help you with market analysis on what rents would be. We can direct you to RTB in order to get the forms and all of that sort of stuff. So there is stuff that your realtor
Well,
should be doing to help you. Go ahead.
I want to come back to and say, yeah, you said it often it doesn't will turn a no into yes. I'm going to say often it does. You take a
Really?
look at a property of a $1.5 million, say, detached home that doesn't have a rental suite to a
Oh,
$1.6 million property or a 1.5 that does. And that rental income with the basement suite can push you into an approval versus the one that doesn't may push you into a decline versus, because of what they
no.
call ratios,
Yeah,
right?
that's fair.
So
Yes, good point.
yeah, so
That is,
there's so often, folks, it can turn a no into a yes. But sometimes it's just looking at a different property that has a rental suite
yeah,
to one that doesn't,
right.
right? So, and yes, being a landlord is a different animal. And yes, goes back to our power team. As
Yes.
far as if you have the right power team surrounding you, they're going to be able to help you navigate through that, right? And again, like this is actually even another part um, with rental income is that Airbnb. As far
Hmm.
as what some people use with their basement suites and
Yeah.
and recognize that or transition that into an Airbnb, right? So again, not to there again, folks, there is a lot of no's that can be turned into a yes by the utilization of rental income.
Yeah. Yeah. So amazing pod today, man. This was a lot. There was a lot of great nuggets to take away from here. I think a lot to do again with we took a little bit of a backslide in the market last month, but I'm still busy, so it's I'm happy. We'll see what August brings. We are now into the fall market, which is the busier time. So we'll see what the next 3 months have to bring. I do perceive us getting better. CMHC and CREA also they reduced their outlook on pricing. They dropped it down, and they dropped their outlook down on sales too. So they're not forecasting a big rallying end of the year, but guys, it is going to switch at some point. So just be ready. Be ready. That's, I guess, all I can say. Always be in touch with your power team. I think that's the most important thing, is just make sure you're talking to your power team, so you're always informed for when that time comes that you are ready to do things. Well, thank you guys all for listening to us today. Having an amazing weekend. It is going to be hot. It is going to be sunny. So stay hydrated. Get out there. Do something. Have some fun. Hit up the beach. Hit up the park. Hit up something. But have some fun out there. We can't wait to be back here next week with you with episode number 106. Woo! In the meantime, stay empowered. Stay informed. And Geoff,
stay tuned.
That's right, baby. Stay tuned. Peace out.